Welcome to Puck Talk CS. I'm your host, Matthew Mugno, with co-host Steven Murno. And what better way to end the week than two New York Rangers wins against the Dallas Stars and the Ottawa Senators? Steve, let's jump right into the action.
Let's do it. Let's talk some puck. Why not? And we got to start with the Dallas game, coming off one of the most abysmal losses of the year and that lackluster effort against Tampa. Coming out this game, your raw reaction. Give it to us.
Yeah, Steve, you know what my raw reaction is? I'm starting to see some things glass half full. A team can kind of smooth over some things when, or at least I believe that a team you can kind of overlook some gaps or some flaws in a game when the sum of the team's parts is playing up a level. And I think with Adam Fox out, the defense has stepped up. Will Cooley's goal, that's a turning point goal we didn't see all of last year. So raw reaction, I'm seeing the positives right now. And you and I have talked all year, Steve, about some of the negatives, some long-term things that are on our minds, but it's nice on a Friday to just chat about some good things that the team's done.
Yeah, it feels refreshing because I feel like, especially this year and really last year, I feel like we've been setting new bars. This was the worst loss of the season. This was the worst loss of the season, especially last year, towards the end of last year. This year, you know, or even we've never had that was the best win of the year. That was the best win of the year. Like we've always talking about that was the best loss or the worst loss. This was easily the best win of the year for us, and especially without Adam Fox. We talked about that a lot last episode. And it coming off, like I mentioned, that really uncompetitive game against Tampa. Um, and also, not to mention who the opponent was, Dallas coming into this game. Dallas was one of the hottest teams in the league. They came in with a 4-game winning streak, and they were like 10-1, since the beginning of November. They have been really hot. And just coming out and we outshot Dallas in this game. We also, I think we dominated them. In the third period, it wasn't even close in terms of controlling the puck, in terms of getting shots on goal. I really like to see that because really the sentiment of the whole season has been quite the opposite. We are the ones that tend to get outshot, have problems controlling the puck. But the fact that we did this twofold: one against a team like Dallas, one of the league's best this far up to this point in the season, and the fact that we did it on home ice. We trying to break that mentality. This wasn't a game that we dominated in terms of the results, but it still was a feel good game. You got your confidence up, and I still thought the breadcrumbs were there of controlling the puck, out shooting them. I think this was the game you had to have, especially at this point in the season, on home ice. It wasn't on the road. Yes, we're the best road team in the league, but it was on home ice. That was crucial. Do you think like this is laying, the breadcrumbs to actually be a competent team at home? What do you think?
Hopefully, it's a sign of things to come, right? And I think the number one thing that I took away was two things. And this isn't for the algebra crowd. I love the math of the game too, but I think what's overlooked, I said this last epi too, like I'm a guy that believes in some of those intangibles. Confidence is key. And I think what Vincent Trocek said in the post game about the team feeling some confidence, and then the way the team celebrated with each other after the Ottawa win, I feel that those point to a team that has found some mojo. The win at home, Steve, you mentioned some of their chances. It also felt like it was the first result this year that even when the Rangers had their chances at times on home ice, they would lose the game. And we'd say, oh, the other goalie performed so well, like that Washington Capitals game. They had so many chances off the rush, high danger, and the result was a loss, which is the only thing you'll look back at. Now you look and you say, well, they won that game. And maybe they got a little bit of luck on their side. The Will Cooley goal, right? Some things falling their way. But guess what? Every team has things fall their way. The Florida Panthers supremacy the last 3 seasons was an 87-point regular season campaign and a loss by another team that allowed them to get into the playoffs. So the way I view it, Steve, confidence builder. And I know you talked a lot about the home ice struggles. That's another thing that's checked from these last two games. You go on the road, where our most viewed episode was the wild card blunder last year against Ottawa, the overtime loss. They go up there and they win convincingly. So in a little more of a run and gun style. So yeah, I thought the Dallas game, if we're speaking solely on that, home ice win, check. Late game tying goal. They haven't done that in a few years. Check. And then won the game. Overtime goal from Vladislav Gavrikov. I know we're going to talk about him in a moment, but holy smokes. I mean, the guy you signed to a 7x7 laden in bonuses and clauses comes through with the overtime goal. You just don't expect that. And that's what a good team does. They overcome difficult situations like we saw with Adam Fox.
Yeah, the same thing could be said about Will Borgen last night. You know, when you get those contributions from the defense, it makes you feel good. Talking about contributions from the defense, let's revisit a main point we had in the last episode with Adam Fox going down. Big talk is Braden Schneider stepping up. How is he going to embrace this new role? And in his first game, sticking with his Dallas game, I think replacing Adam Fox, I think he looked confident. I think he looked far from overwhelmed with that extra responsibility. Not to mention the minutes that Adam Fox logs per game, huge. I thought Schneider, stepped up big. He even had that, that long short-handed, what was it, like 2 minutes and a half that he was able to stay calm. I thought he was great. I think he played a major role in diffusing Dallas's his power play in its few opportunities. So if you got any thoughts on that, I think Schneider so far has looked good.
Yeah, there were a few topics in last episode that we brought a lot into question. And to be frank, I know it's a very small sample, but everything we talked about is completely flipped. And maybe that's why I'm looking at things positively, at least with what we talked about. I thought Braden Schneider looked really good. Had the assist on the Gavrikov goal. Obviously, I want to talk about him and Borgen in a moment, but and Susie for that matter too. The defense as a whole, we questioned their offensive upside. They're actually a top 10. What are they? Let's see what the stat is. I think they're like a top 5 or top 10 team in defensive points this season. I'll pull that up in a second, but that's a completely different conversation than we were having 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. A completely different conversation you and I had on Sunday. So, Steve, what did you think of Braden Schneider's game overall, at least in this small sample?
Yeah, I think he was active in all three zones. Blocking shots. I thought he stepped up and was making a presence offensively too. Couple shots on goal. And I think he leaned more into his physical play. And I remember he had a big hit. I forget who it was on, but he had
It was Timmy Stu.
I don't remember who it was, but he had a big hit when Dallas was coming on the rush. I thought was pretty big. Um, but I thought that he was active in all three zones, and I think it was big. I think this, especially the first game. It's not like he steps into this role and there's a little bit of a struggle. I feel like players on our team in the past, in terms of expectations, first games, you come in, you have a really bad game. It's so easy to stick to that status quo. The fact that this was his first game and he's made a big impact, I think was big. It's like he's putting his big boy pants on, and this is exactly what we need as defense in this during this crucial home stretch to finish out 2025, because I really do think we need to finish 2025 out strong. I think he looked pretty darn good in his first game in this increased role.
All right, I want to talk about this Ottawa game. We talked about the decor, how they have to step up, and I said last episode, I mean, you could clip us apart with what we were talking about, that I didn't think the sum of this group on the back end could come close to matching what Adam Fox output is. Although that's true, they all stepped up. They are fifth in the NHL in goals scored from the blue line. So right now they have 16 goals by defensemen. Gavrikov, Borgen with 2 last night. I thought Borgen's been, I mean, he was up and down with the injuries, but I thought he was fairly quiet. You know, you and I were high on him when he came in. He earned that deal with really strong play last season. So I thought it was great to see some of these guys getting on the board, and that's part of finding mojo, right? Is just finding the back of the net. The Borgen play I love because Carrick and Brodzinski or Radish, apologies, in the corner. Brodzinski forces Sanderson to fall on the forecheck. He gets the puck. Radish jumps in. They outwork Dylan Cousins, who's the workhorse from Whitehorse, big body. They get the puck up to Susie, who makes a nice pass, backhand spino dish to Borgen, who had all the time in the world. 4 Senators on the opposite side of the slot. Borgen, with Radish and Carrick crashing the net, scores through a screen. Those are plays we just weren't seeing, Steve. Gavrikov picking a corner. For his stats, he's got 2 goals in Fox's absence, a +3, 23 minutes a night. The OT goal on against Dallas, another goal, and you saw the confidence when the team scored. When Gavrikov had scored and how excited they were for him, he's been on a heater. So from the back end, Steve, I think the whole conversation we had last week about team defense and scoring, how they can jump into the offense, like it's been quelled. And I do think the underlying trend in all of this is gaining confidence. Like you said, that first game against Dallas, it was that could make or break this season. You know, if they are battered by Dallas, does Braden Schneider really come back against Ottawa and play that well? I don't know. So at least all we can say is in this Ottawa game, a little more run and gun. Miller's advantage had Panarin link up for that first goal too. There were a lot of things that were areas of concern that actually were a positive result.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you there. Couldn't agree with you on that. This was another feel good game. Sorry. Obviously, we know what the Senators did to us last year. This was important to get in there, and this was a team again we talked about on last episode. A team that's struggling to defend. They've been a little consistent. The Ottawa has their own struggles. They're still trying to figure out what the heck they are. So this is an opportunity for us, being the best road team in the league, to come in there and really, I don't want to say mop the floor, but really show that we're playing with that swagger and that confidence. And I think a big takeaway for me is that, yes, we've had slow starts to the game. This first period was very contested. And what I like is we came out, we dominated the second period. We came out with confidence, and we increased our lead to 3-1. That I thought was very important. We came out, we had shot the Senators. I thought we got good quality shooting chances, and I think that really put the defense in a much better position. And I have to say, the 2 players for me in this game, it should be really no surprise. I mean, Igor, number 1. I mean, Igor's been fantastic recently. He is locked in with Quick out these last few weeks. We're riding Shesterkin between the pipes, and I think that decision is paying off. He's been 5-1 recently. I don't know how many goals he's given up in that span, but it is not a high amount. He is playing extremely well, and I think no matter the situation, to me, Igor right now, or maybe not right now, I just think in general, he's the number 1 goalie. I don't think anyone beats him at this point. He's really living up to the heavier workload right now, which I think is good. We've seen in past years heavier work, or even last year at points, give Igor a heavier workload, he struggles. We see, and chalk that up to a bad defense, whatever. Heavy workload this year. He's looked good. He's dialed up. He's made a lot of clutch saves. How about that breakaway stop against the Chuck early in the game? I thought that was big. He looked calm. He looked great. Again, I think he's been really big for us. Any thoughts on Igor?
Yeah, he's been phenomenal. Actually, I started like a complete Twitter discourse online this week after the Dallas game based on his performance, because he made a save on Johnston on the power play in the first period where he made a save, he made another save in the slot, high danger. And moments later, Connor Sheary set the play up for Laba to go down ice and Susi to score. Those are the plays we also weren't seeing, Steve, like saves turning into goals off the rush. Systematically, too, like what Mike Sullivan's looking for in that parachute and hound style of forecheck and zone exit. What I thought in this Ottawa game, which you nailed it, is timely saves. He made, I have to say off the top, the Stutzla breakaway save, the Kachuk breakaway save. Igor, like the Rangers defense wasn't at their best, but this is why sometimes a system like this takes a little bit to work in. They weren't getting the point production from their top players, but they had the defense. Last night was an example to me, Steve, which agree with me or not, it was a little more open. I didn't think the Rangers defense was phenomenal. Igor was there to stop those quality chances when they got through. They gave up some 2-on-1s. They gave up 2 breakaways, but Igor was there. He's 7-3-0 in his last 10, a 917 save percentage, 10.8 goals saved above expected. Now, I'm not the biggest on the algebra stuff, but that's essentially 10 goals that could, or 10 goals against that could have occurred if he's not in between the red bars. And like you said, 5-1-0. I think he's been heating up. I think the team's been heating up since that game in Carolina. So, and that was a game where I think Igor was pretty good all year, but that one I feel like was the first where that was a game he dominated. Last night, a game he dominated. So, who was, I mean, outside of Igor, who was the other player you thought was like the most noticeable?
I'm glad you mentioned it because actually I have another one, but the other one I was talking about in terms of overall is Panarin. You know, very
Okay.
simple. Um, More importantly, I think the main point with him is he's rolling after a slow start to the year. I think he's picked it up drastically. You know, let's remember a few weeks ago. Let's recall. What was it? The first 8 games of the season, he only had what 2 points, 2 assists.
Yep.
So
He's top 3 for left wingers since November 1st in points.
yep. And I think that does seem like forever ago. It's crazy. Time flies. I still feel like Halloween was last week, but time flies. And, look how far he's come from that point of the season. I think he's leading us in points. He's been, again, you're the numbers guy. I don't got the numbers on top of me, but if we read these numbers, he's been fantastic recently. You think about how many multi-point games he has this season. I think it's just so important. Panarin has a multi-point game. It's going to be a good night for the Rangers offensively. And again, early to bring this up in conversation, but let's not remember, that he's going to be the biggest name on the free agent market next summer. Despite his age, despite the fact that he's going to get paid. I want to raise like that point that he what he means to his team is so important. It's so early to start talking about this conversation, but he is so important to this team, and I think you've seen it during this stretch. The last 2 weeks of games we won. Rangers do well when Panarin does well. Rangers do well when the core does well. It's the same thing until this core gets blown up. This is like been the puck talk theme of the last like 4 years, maybe even plus. But when you got especially 3 years, when you get Igor, Fox, Trocheck, Panarin, Zibanejad, that is your core. The core plays well. Hence, nights like last night, Panarin, Igor, both of them been rolling. Not even just last night, but the last 2 weeks. Team's going to play well. The team is going to play well. And then you're going to have your supplemental pieces there. You're going to have your Gabrikov and Borgen and Laba. And people come in, on nights here and there and chip in. But when your core plays well, there's really, nothing else to add. It just elevates everybody's game. So I think Panarin and Igor for me were 2 standouts. What do you got for me after that?
Yeah, well, Panarin 23 points since November 1st. He's second among left wingers to Jason I agree with what you said. I thought Panarin, he started that play with Miller and Zibanejad on the wall. He goes to the puck, back turn. He knows that when he gets a chip, his stick to chip the puck into a lane for Miller rushing, he knows he's going to get hit. And that's what I liked because it's one thing if Panarin doesn't mix it up. He's not a physically engaging player. He checks with his wrists. He's got strong forearms to lock down when he's on the forecheck or steal pucks. And a strong, center core that we've seen where that's kind of how he can pull pucks out. What I liked about that play is that he was willing to take the check to make the play for Miller. Miller's rushing up ice. He looked a little bit faster, I thought. Still not totally physically engaging. He's not in every opponent's face, and that's why they brought Miller in. But with whatever the injuries are, I'm assuming that's maybe why he is hesitant to be as forcefully engaged as we've seen in the past. But the fact Miller makes that play, Zibanejad scores on that 2-on-1 rush. They had some chemistry. Those are your three top forwards. Add in Trocheck, and then the rest is up for debate, in my opinion, in terms of like a Cooley or Lafreniere or whatever. But yeah, I thought the fact that Panarin starts the play that starts the game. He is the catalyst, and we always talk about that. But like you said, core players. We just mentioned three of the top point producers for the team that have to be connecting on a goal. Igor's play. Love that you brought that up. Defense rising in Adam Fox absence. Another, valuable piece to this. The other one that stands out, Stevo, is Noah Laba's play and how the depth played in support of the defense, in support of the goaltending, in support of the top point producers. Laba checks, he has Brady Kachuk back checking on him when he makes the play in the neutral zone, finds a gains the zone at the top of the circles, puts on the brakes to set up, and then 4 passes later, it's in the back of the net on that Gavrikov snipe. He starts that play. Brodzinski starts the play for the Borgen goal. So I also thought there was a major credit to the Rangers winning boards battles, winning in the trenches, and that's also what's going to win you games. And I think everything we just talked about is like the basic formula to win hockey games, and we finally saw that come to fruition.
Yeah, I like the point you made on Laba. I think overall he was a force on the ice against the Senators. He was very noticeable. Whether it was just applying consistent puck pressure or making a difference in terms of hits, and even in the faceoff circle, I think he's been great. I want to talk about um, his line. Speaking of physical play, Will Cooley. I thought Will Cooley, as always, very noticeable in terms of physicality, block
Mm-hmm.
shots, hits, that kind of stuff. And Berard, I thought Berard brought his energy to those proceedings. So this version of a kid line, I guess you could say, I think it's quickly turning into a line that has got a little bit of a pop. It's got a little bit of energy. Um, you know, I think Sullivan's starting to trust it a little bit more. So I want to hear your thoughts on the impact, for this third option, for us. What do you think?
Well, I think listen, there's still a lot about the roster construction that fans are unhappy about, understandably so. That, yeah, I'm not 100% pleased with, but I thought the energy Berard brings, the energy. Some folks are still upset about point totals, and I understand that maybe you look and you say, well, Berard, I had someone tweet at me like Brett Berard hasn't found the back of the net. That is not his role on this team. And listen, he's going to have to produce at some point. Um, Laba has, Cooley has, and we've seen that. But for an organization that's often really slammed for development, I think what we talk about, and I think it's kind of been generalized, is development of like number one scorers, right? Like Macklin Celebrini, you draft him first overall. He is now a top player in the NHL, a top point producer. That's not what the Rangers got out of Kako. That's not what the Rangers got out of Lafreniere, Kravtsov, Anderson, those top 10 picks. But let's be real. Defense wise, maybe I'm going a little bit too broad here. Igor, goaltending, always been a goalie town on Broadway. And these gritty energy forwards. I mean, the Rangers drafted them. Now I understand that Sullivan's played Sheary and Sullivan's played Radish over Berard, and Laba kind of forced his way onto the roster as Cooley did a few years back. But I've been really impressed, Steve. You can't put a metric on it, but their contributions when they're getting goal support is invaluable. And I think it's a chicken and the egg. They're forechecking, their boards battles, their winning in the corners, their physicality, coupled with Panarin's goal scoring prowess, Zibanejad heating up, JT Miller looking like himself. That's a marriage that this team has waited for. So I love that you brought up the energy, man. I love the energy that they brought.
Yep, me too. I think how that translate moving forward, I think it's going to be exciting to see. And it just makes it easier for them to thrive. Like I said, when you have your first two lines booming. Let's take a look and move ahead now. Now, Saturday, we have a Saturday matinee. Colorado comes to town for a matchup. We just played them a couple weeks ago. Close game. That game was very close. Always close with them. But again, Colorado has gotten the best of us in the last few matchups. The last time we beat Colorado in regulation, can't remember the last time. It's got to be a few years ago. Definitely over 3 years ago. So this is one that we got to do. I think I'm looking for the team to come out home ice. I want them to be. I want them to come out fast. I want them to come out and look competent. I don't want anything to be slow. Nathan MacKinnon on the ice. Avs play a fast game on a home ice. I want that confidence from
Evo,
Tuesday.
I would argue Nathan MacKinnon's been the best player in the NHL this season.
He's been great, man. I mean, he is unstoppable. He is him, So we know that scoring against this team is not going to be easy. I think I saw something that they are one of the best teams in goals allowed. Them and Dallas and somebody else. I don't remember who it was. And I think they've only lost just once in regulation this entire year. So Colorado, this is going to be a really hard team to beat. Actually, twice. They lost yesterday. Colorado lost to the Islanders. Oof. So maybe we could take advantage of that a little bit. But you looking for anything in this game?
Well, to build upon what they've established, and I think that's what the team has needed this season, is at times they've won games that it was a step forward and two back after. This week felt like they won in Dallas at home, and it was like they won in overtime. They have some mojo. Then they go on the road and defeat Ottawa, who's third in the Atlantic. Now, would they be third in the Metro? No. But point being, this is a wide open East. You start to win games like this, you start to gain confidence. You say, all right, look where we're at in the standings. Look how we're playing. We're playing a defensive game. Our point scorers are scoring. Our depth is contributing, and our goaltender is good. He's starting to play his best right now. I won't say it's Igor Shesterkin's, elite ceiling, but he's really heating up. So there's so many factors that now are winding up. It feels like a wave. It's retracted, but now this wave feels like a pretty good surf. And if the Rangers can catch that and hang 10, I think that's going to be key against Colorado. Now, will I completely flip 180 from what we talked about on this episode if they lose and they play a really good game? Probably not. And here's why. This team's going to lose some games coming up, and that's a reality. They're not going to win every game against all these top opponents, Steve. But to me, I think you have the effort that we've seen the last two nights. You score a few goals the way we saw, team efforts, full team effort. What is there to be upset about? So, Steve, I want to ask you, does a W at the end of the evening on Saturday matter as much as how well the team's playing or a continuation of what we've seen?
Yes and no. This is you come out, you have a game on Tuesday, you feel good on home ice, you come out, win yesterday, you're riding a little bit of momentum and we've seen the difference from what we've seen from this team this year compared to 2 years ago when we were the best team in the league is that we were able to have sustained momentum where we came out, we were winning 4, 5, 6 games in a row. This year, it kind of feels like you win one, you lose the momentum, come out, lose the next game. Or you have such a great game, you come out and you look like, whoa, what the hell? We look like mashed potatoes. I want to see a little bit more than I want to see. Like I want to be able to win 3 or 4 games in a row. Then we start to say, you start to show to me that okay, like we have something. You know, when you win one, lose one, but not even that. We've done it in ways where we've come out, we win, then we lose, and we look like just so different. Like I want to see win, 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 win. It just shows us and that this team, there's something more to this team. Because let's be honest, I'm still on the fence with our team. You know, the way we've played at home, you know, to start the year versus the way we've played on the road. I mean, we look like two different teams. Like I just don't know what to make of it. You know, and this is only going to heighten as we get into 2026 and we slowly creep towards that trade deadline. You know, what, you know, it's not a question I'm going to have an answer for right now, but what, you know, is the roster construction of this team? You know, it's been a question that, you know, we've chucked this around the all off season, you know, and even the last few years. But it's like, what does this team need, you know, as we get to the trade deadline? Or can we take winning seriously? You know, and I
Yeah.
think this, I need to see, you know, a win like Dallas, a win like Senators come out, maybe a win against Colorado, and it's not going to be easy. You know, it really is not going to be easy. This Colorado team, you know, I'm high on them. I'm high on them every year. I know I was high on them last year and it didn't pan out. But this Colorado team is still a tough team. And then not only after Colorado, you have Vegas coming in. You know, they always play us tight well. Yes, this might not be the same Vegas team that we're used to seeing, but still, for some reason, when they play us, they play such a tight game and they play us so well. So those games are never easy. Gonna be tough 2 games, but I'll flip it back to you. Do you know? Why don't you take a shot at answering your own question?
Well, I mean, listen, I think you raised good points that maybe with some positivity I've overlooked. You know, at what point does this roster settle? At what point do you say like this is the group moving forward? Um, has that already happened? Right now, obviously Adam Fox is out, but meaning especially with the forwards, you know, is Radish playing 82 games this year? Is Berard earning a roster spot full time? Some of these questions are just going to be answered over time. It's not like a benchmark that like on this day we're going to find out all the answers. And obviously patience is thin in New York to begin with. But like you said, trade deadline. Now the month of December could answer that. But say they ride hot in December, which almost never happens historically for the Rangers. But then they lose a plethora of games in January before the Olympic break. Do you pull the trigger and is it time to start trading some bigger assets to try and short term rebuild this team? Um, or do you lean all the way in? Do you lean halfway in? I mean, there's going to have to be a point where the organization decides what it wants to do moving forward in the future. And I think part of that is the short term success before the trade deadline and the long term outlook of, you know, like you said, what the roster could be. So you raise some good questions. It's just, I don't feel like there's a clear answer right now. They are in the thick at the moment of a um, very tough schedule in December, right? And it's going to depend on results. And right now they have some confidence back. And at least in terms of some of the doom and gloom we've had overhang for over the team the last 2 seasons, it feels pretty good about just over a year from the Chris Kreider and Jacob Truba trade memo that the team finally has 2 wins that feel pretty good.
Yeah, I agree with you. So with that, we'll leave it on like a little bit of a positive note, and that'll wrap us up here on this episode of Puck Talk CS. Big matchup coming up against Colorado. We'll be back at it after to wrap it up and recap and give you everything New York Rangers hockey, baby. Always remember, it's just the luck of the puck.